Hello, everyone. Welcome to Joe's Hot Takes 25. This is season 1, episode 14. Can you believe it? 14 episodes already. This episode is going to be on American taxes. Here it is. April 23rd is the day that I'm recording this. So it's been a sad few weeks with the Internal Revenue Service just pulling some money right out of my account. So let's talk about American taxes. So welcome to Joe's Hot Takes 25. I'm Joe. I'm your host. Today we're going to dive into that topic. It nags at all of us. Taxes. What kinds of taxes do we actually pay? That's my question. Why? What do we pay all these taxes for? And why so many different taxes? And what are the tax rates? And how do they stack up to other countries around the world? Do we pay more than them? I don't know. I want to find out. So I did some research. So let's break it down. I think the way to start this is the first question is, what types of taxes do we pay? Because we are hit with a wide variety of taxes. We pay income tax, payroll tax, sales tax, property tax, capital gains, excise tax, like gas and cigarettes, unemployment, Medicare, consumption tax, those hidden fees tied into state, city, and county sales, those are those consumption taxes. Interesting, all these taxes. So where does federal tax revenues, where do they come from? Where do they get their money and who's paying it? What's it all about? Let's talk about it. Let's break it down a little bit so that we can ask the questions of why do we pay so much? Why are there so many different kinds of taxes that we pay? What can we do about it? All right. So first, we all know this. We just dealt with it because here it is, late April. Income tax, individual income taxes. So where federal tax revenue comes from, this right here, folks, individual income taxes, the biggest chunk. This includes wages, salaries, investments, etc. So anywhere where individual income was earned, that's where the government makes their biggest chunk of money. They take the biggest one. Payroll taxes. So the payroll taxes, they fund Social Security, Medicare, unemployment. You'll see these as FICA, F-I-C-A. You'll see these as FICA on your pay stubs. So we pay these, which brings up an interesting question. If I'm paying for 40 plus years, I'm paying Social Security, Medicare, unemployment taxes. Is it going to be there for me? Now I'm knocking on retirement's door. I'm knocking on the door of collecting Medicare, Social Security. But how long will it be around? I don't know. Let's talk. Let's find out. These are great questions. So we covered payroll taxes. Then you have your corporate taxes. Those are profits that these corporations make that are taxed at the federal level. There's a flat at this level, at this point in the game, it's a flat 21%. And they possibly pay more at the state level. But federal level, flat 21 right now. And then we have excise taxes. So think of gasoline, alcohol, gambling, all the fun stuff. We pay tax on that too. Then we have customs and duty taxes. These are like taxes on imports. So think about the tariffs that they're talking about right now. These are taxes that we pay on all imports. And then there's estate and gift taxes. I can't even give somebody money without the federal government reaching into the pot and taking theirs. So estate and gift taxes and revenue from the Federal Reserve also contribute to those. So well, then how much do I pay? What is my tax bracket? What are the tax brackets? What does all this mean? It's so confusing. So U.S. federal income tax brackets, this is in 2024, so we just got done paying those. There are seven. There are seven tax brackets, everyone. There's a 10%, a 12%, a 22, 24, 32, 35, 37. But remember, these are marginal rates. Only the portion of income in each bracket is taxed at that rate. I'm not a tax guy, but let's just say you go out and you earn $100,000. That's going to put you in one of these seven tax brackets. Now you're going to have some deductions, possible child deductions or mortgage interest deductions. I don't know, whatever your deductions are. You'll have some deductions. Once all that's done, they're going to take that 100,000 and say, well, you have a taxable income of less than 100,000. And whatever this falls in, 10, 12, 22, 24, 32, 35, or 37%, that's what you're going to pay. That's your bracket. So we know every year we're paying. Some of us, I try to set my taxes up to where I'm going to break even at the end of the year. So my plan is I want to break even with the federal government and the state. I don't want them to have my money all year tax-free. I would rather have, interest-free. I would rather have that money in my account earning some interest, which I'll have to pay income on because earned interest is income. But I'd rather pay income on that the next year, and we'll just keep rolling it and rolling it. But I would rather break even. Now, I know a lot of folks are out there are like, no, I overpay my taxes, and then at the end of the year I get a refund, and I look forward to my refund every year. It's like a savings plan. Well, it's a terrible savings plan. That's just my opinion, which I try to keep out of these podcasts. That's a terrible savings plan because you're earning no interest on it at all. And believe you me, if you owe the IRS money, they are going to charge you interest. They are going to charge you interest if you owe them money. But if they owe you money, you don't get paid interest. Pretty unfair system. So that's at our level, right? All of us folks here are just working, earning a check, and moving forward. So let's talk about the corporations. Do corporations really not pay taxes? Because you always hear this. You hear this in the news a lot. You all know that the news media is one of my favorite things. And they're always saying, oh, well, the big corporations don't pay taxes. Okay. Well, this gets a little controversial because corporations pay 21% federally. But there are legal strategies, like things that are way beyond my understanding. This is where you need tax people. But there is things called accelerated depreciation or offshore profits, stock option deductions, or tax credits. There are ways that they can take their income, get some deductions, and then have a lower taxable income or profit. Just like you and I. It's the same thing. It's just on the corporate level, it's much bigger. Some profitable corporations pay little to no federal income tax, but that tax burden doesn't just vanish. It gets passed on to the shareholders, workers, and even consumers. So that does happen. There are corporations that through these tax credits, options, offshore profits, accelerated depreciation, things like that, where they may or may not pay any taxes certain years. So, I mean, it is what it is, right? Everybody's got to make money. People complain about the big corporations. I had a friend of mine who's a lawyer. I made a comment one day. I said, I'm going to run over to Walmart and get a sheet cake for a party. And my friend, the lawyer, said, I don't go to Walmart. I don't shop at that place. They're a big corporation, and they just take advantage of people, and they take advantage of their employees. And I thought about that for a second, and then I said to my friend, Well, how many people do you think are going to sit down to dinner tonight because they could afford to shop at Walmart for their food and beverages? And they're going to sit down to a dinner tonight together because that's where they could go. That's what they could afford. Or how many people are going to sit down to dinner tonight because they work for Walmart and they make it, and that's how they earn their income. And now they're going to sit down to dinner tonight with their family because that's where they work. And I said, we need big corporations. Big corporations they're not our enemies. They're not bad. They employ a lot of people. They bring a lot of commerce into our communities and into our economy. And they provide a source for other people to earn money. So big corporations aren't all bad. They're not these big teeth and fangs, terrible people. But this is America, and we are the land of opportunity, and this is a free enterprise country. So hats off to these people, these corporations or these entrepreneurs who earn a lot of money. I'm happy for you. I could have done that myself. I chose not to. I decided I would work for the government. Hey, so I worked for the government for many years. So why are there so many taxes? What do we do with what does the government do with all this money, all these taxes? Well, we know that they waste a lot of it, but the things that aren't wasted. So taxes fund essential things, right? We all know that. Schools, infrastructure, our streets, our water, even power systems, defense, which is an upcoming podcast, by the way, where I will talk about defense spending, which is an enormous amount of money that is spent on defense. Transportation. This is another pet peeve of mine, folks, the transportation thing. I live in the Phoenix metropolitan area. We have these buses that run around. Some of them are like double buses with like an accordion in the middle, right? And virtually at any point, you can drive up next to one of these buses and look in the window and see zero to maybe 4 or 5 people on the bus at just about any given time. In my opinion, which I try to leave out, but I'm going to give it to you, a complete waste of taxpayers' funding. What are we paying for buses, fuel, mechanics, maintenance, drivers, all that goes into having these buses? And really all they're doing is shuttling homeless people around. The same with our transit system with the trains. Same thing. You look on those trains, there's nobody on them. Just homeless people riding them back and forth. Complete waste of money, in my opinion. But that's where some of our tax money goes, to funding transportation projects. We know, I just talked about FICA, so Social Security is another place where our taxes go. Healthcare, like Medicare. A lot of money goes to research. You'll see that now with DOGE that's cutting federal spending. They're going after a lot of these research projects that are really kind of questionable. Do we really need to do that research? And do we need to spend that kind of money on that type of research? So, and I don't want to get into different types of research, just saying. Our taxes also help with veterans benefits and more, right? Without them, none of those services would exist. Without us paying taxes, none of these services would exist. Now, there's arguments that there are other countries in the world that don't pay taxes like we do, but yet they're still able to fund essentials. So let's see if we can find out a little bit more about that too. So we've probably all heard, like, I know I've even said it, maybe blindly because I wasn't that educated on it, but I would say, why can't we just have a flat tax rate? Hey, I'll just pay 10%. It doesn't matter. We don't need deductions. We don't need this. We don't need that. If I make $100,000 in a year, I'm going to pay $10,000 to the government and I get to keep 90. Wouldn't that be great? That's not going to happen, but that would be awesome. Well, a flat tax rate sounds fair where everyone pays the same rate, but this is an argument that you'll hear. The argument is it lacks wealth redistribution. That almost sounds like socialism to me. Wealth redistribution. The argument against a flat tax is that it may hurt middle or lower class income families. I mean, you have to look at it this way. Where do you cut off the line and say, if you're earning less than this amount of money, maybe you shouldn't pay any taxes? I don't know. However, you're probably getting services. So if you're below the poverty line or level of income, you're probably getting services. If you're getting services, who's paying for those services? And so that argument to me is kind of a moot point because everybody should pay. Everybody needs to put their 2 cents in. And this is going to get me started down another rabbit hole of minimum wage. And folks, never, ever was minimum wage designed or conceived to be a living wage, to be a wage that you worked all your life at and then retired from. That's never been the thing. So I get so tired of hearing about minimum wage isn't enough. It's not a living wage. You can't live off of it. Right. That's not what it's for. Anyway, back to the lawyer. The lawyer also said, these big corporations need to pay their people a lot more money. Places like Walmart, they need to get a fair, higher living wage. Okay. My argument back was to my friend, the lawyer, not everybody gets to be a lawyer. Some people will go to school, spend the money, become a lawyer, earn the money, pay back their student debt, and have a nice wage as they move forward in life. But not everybody gets to do that. Some people will always work for Walmart or Circle K, or unfortunately, places like McDonald's or Taco Bell. It's just the way it is. So, but every human, every person in the United States of America has the right and has the ability to operate in free enterprise, and you're allowed to earn as much money as you want. You're going to pay federal tax on it and state tax, but you're allowed to earn as much as you want. Okay. So some even believe that if you had a flat tax rate, it would start wars, tax wars, like the tariff issues that we're seeing with other countries, because, I guess because we're not paying as much as we should be. So how do you slap extra tax on somebody that's got a set tax rate? How do you now say, oh, well, you're buying things from China, or you're buying furniture from IKEA. I believe it's actually pronounced IKEA, is what I was told. But anyway, that stuff's coming from Denmark. It's coming from China. It's coming from wherever it's coming from. Somebody's paying tax on it. They're paying import tax and or tariff. So I can see where that would be an issue. So still, we could reduce the burden by trimming the wasteful spending, I think. I think we can all agree on that. I see that happening today. The current administration in the White House is looking at ways to trim wasteful spending. I think that's something we should have looked at a long time ago. They're working on it, cutting non-essential programs. It may sting a little bit in the beginning, but could it bring a long-term balance? Could it balance everything out? Only time will tell. Let's see. You are talking about some wealthy individuals who have earned. They're educated individuals. So I'm hopeful, folks, that we're going to see really positive things come out of this, but let's see. So here's a personal parallel. As a retiree, because that's me, as a retiree, I'm constantly reviewing my expenses, right? I'm looking at how can I earn more? How can I spend less? Am I done with my earning? Have I met my earning potential? I'm not earning anymore. I'm not working anymore. I'm completely retired. The only extra income I can generate is through my own, going out and doing my own work, getting another job, or doing real estate deals and try to earn some money that way. But if my income is fixed, then I need to trim the fat wherever I can. And that's kind of similar to what our government's doing right now, right? They're trying to trim some of that fat. So it's not always comfortable. Sometimes it's necessary. And I know I'm doing it. And I know my wife is probably sick and tired of me saying, honey, we need to pump the brakes. Let's not spend some money on this. Let's not spend money here. Let's try to save where we can here. Just trying to prepare. I don't know how long I'm going to live. You could die tomorrow. Then, no worries. My financial problems are not that big of a deal. Oh, but what if I live to be 85, 90, 95? Do I have enough saved up? Am I prepared for that? I don't know. That's another podcast. And you've probably already heard it, so. Let's look at global tax comparisons. So how do other countries stack up? So remember, I'm gonna scroll back up to my numbers here about our taxes, right? Our tax brackets. So we know corporations are at that 21%. And then we know that there's a whole bunch of tax brackets, right? As a matter of fact, 7, 10%, 12, 22, 24, 32, 35, and 37. Our highest tax rate is 37%. That's in the United States of America. So how do we stack up with other countries? So, global tax comparison. The Netherlands pays 49%. Sweden, 50%. Belgium, 53.7%. Austria, 55%. Denmark, 55.9%. Japan, 55.97%. Finland, 56.95%. That's a pretty substantial number. The Ivory Coast has the highest personal income tax rate in the world at 60%. Can you imagine that you go out and you work every day and you only get to keep 40 cents of every dollar that you earn? Wow. Can you imagine? In Europe, the average top rate is about 42.8% compared to our top rate of 37%. Now that's on income tax. That makes you think twice before complaining a little bit, doesn't it? Europe, 42.8, US 37. Most of us aren't paying 37%. You got to be earning some pretty good money to get in that 37% tax bracket. But we also have a plethora of other taxes that we pay for everything under the sun. Maybe it's time for another tea party. So how do you lower your own tax liability? How can you take, I earned this much, and then I want to make it taxable this much instead of this much? How do I do that? How do I lower my taxable income? And you can do that through investing in things like municipal bonds, long-term capital gains. You could start a business. Starting a business is a great way to reduce your taxable income. Use your retirement and employer benefits. Use those because a lot of times the money going in is not taxed. It's taxed when you bring it out, but it'll probably come out at a lower rate, hopefully, you would hope. Contribute to HSA, one of those health savings accounts. That's a great way. And trust me, claim every deduction and every credit that you can qualify for. This is why you need a tax professional to help you with your taxes. But use your deductions, use your credit, tax credits, because you can take, let's just use that $100,000. I know it's a lot. Take $100,000. If I can make my taxable income $80,000, $70,000, then I'm paying a whole lot less, and I'm dropping down into those lower tax brackets of the 7 that we have. So, just for some fun, just for a good time here, I blurted out Boston Tea Party. Let's do a little tax history 101. How about that? So let's talk about it. The Boston Tea Party. It's a pivotal act of defiance against British rule, right? It was prompted by the Tea Act of 1773, which granted the British East India Company a monopoly on tea sales in the American colonies. And despite lowering the price of tea, they did lower the price of the tea, but they slapped a tax on it. That was seen as a form of taxation without representation. In other words, I'm paying tax on something and I'm not getting anything in return because I'm also paying for the tea. You know, I talked about where do our tax dollars go, and I said transportation, different welfare programs, things like that, right? That's, you're being taxed, but you have representation for it. You're getting something back, or you have the ability to gain something back, but not with the tea. That's the tea on the tea. So, how did we get where we're at today? Okay, let's go back. Let's go back a little ways. Not tremendously far. Not tremendously far. Let's go back to 1861. The first income tax introduced was to help fund the Civil War. Are you ready for this? It was a 3% on any income over $800. So if you made anything over $800 a year, which in 1861 was decent money, right? 3% tax you paid on it. And that helped pay for the war effort. That was in 1861. In 1872, it was repealed. No more tax. Then, somewhere along the line, about 1894, it all gets reintroduced. But this time, it's a 2% on any income over $4,000. Any income over $4,000, 2% tax, income tax put on it. And guess what? The next year, 1895, it was declared unconstitutional. And then there was no tax. There was no income tax. In 1913, the 16th Amendment was ratified, and that made federal income tax permanent. So we've been dealing with federal income tax since 1913 as part of the 16th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. Prior to that, it wasn't anywhere near the Constitution. In 1942 through 1944, there were some major reforms. Higher rates, more people were paying taxes now because more people were earning. And then there were standard deductions that became introduced because It was like, okay, yeah, people are out there working, they're earning, but they're also spending. So how do we help reduce their taxable income? And that's where you started seeing some standard deductions coming in. So it's just crazy, right? It's just crazy to think about taxes and why do we pay so much? And I you know, my daughter, such a wonderful daughter, was born on April 15th. And so a quick backstory, um, you know, her mom is going to the hospital because she's going to have a baby. I get the tax documents gathered up. I have to take them to our tax accountant at the time. I run over there on April 15th because let me tell you, at that time of my life, it was paycheck to paycheck. I went, got my taxes dropped off. Or I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. I went and picked up my taxes from the tax accountant so that I could take them to the post office and drop them off and have them stamped before midnight on April 15th. So they were probably actually stamped at the post office on April 15th at about 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, okay? And then from there, straight over to the hospital. And shortly thereafter, I'm introduced to my beautiful baby daughter. And so I've told her for all the years of her life so far, honey, I'm really sorry. I can't get you anything for your birthday. We have to pay our taxes. Poor kid. She does fine. Final thoughts. So from the 1700s to today, Americans have questioned taxes, right? We didn't like it. We had a tea party. Americans have questioned taxes. We've reformed them. We've repealed them. And then guess what? We brought them back again. Why? Still, the core question remains, how much is too much? At what point when is it too much? When are we overburdened with taxes? We have this plethora of taxes we pay. We have income tax we pay. Many of us use little to none of the services offered, and we pay. So let's see what happens. Let's see what happens moving forward, okay? I heard the president mention on a news channel this morning that the end goal would be to eliminate federal income tax. 2 thumbs up for that. Let's get rid of it. Anyway, the point of the podcast, right? Ask the questions. I'm not here to answer them for you. I'll give you some information. I'll share some stories, but I want to keep your gears turning. I'll keep researching. I'll keep asking. And I'm hoping that pretty soon we bring some guests on to help unpack these complex issues and open up discussions. I think it would be so much fun. So I'm hoping to have some interactive podcasts coming in the future where there'll be some guests and we'll have conversations. We'll just open up conversation. So as I close out this episode, remember, stay curious, ask questions. Always ask questions. And the most important thing is always, folks, please be kind to one another. Just be kind. And we'll get through this together. Until then, I will see you next time. And I am signing off. Bye now.